Okay, thank you very much. So first, thanks a lot for the invitation from GTI. Yesterday, you heard the presentation from my colleague Afif about the 5G SIA from the industrial ecosystem perspective. And today, I want to give you a little bit of detail about what we are doing about the industrial 5G, especially on the use cases and the requirement perspective. So myself leading the working group 1. So working group 1 is for use case and the requirement deep dive. Together with my colleague Michael Barr from Siemens. Okay, then let's begin. So first I want to just show you a brief journey about the industrial 5G. So actually, the research about the industrial 5G already began from 2012. And then in 2017, so DIT4EI, so this is a German organization for the first time to discuss maybe this new technology 5G will give the impact to the industrial sector, and then they formulated this task force. So actually within this organization, it's incubate 5G ACIA, which is officially formed in 2018. And then along with that, actually 5G ACIA grows together with the path of 3GPP from different releases. And then we have this momentum of private network. So this is actually the terminology come from 5G ACIA, and then we bring a lot of a new thought to the 3GPP as well. Then until this year, 2023, actually we just celebrate the 5 years birthday for 5G ACIA in Hannover Messe. So this is one of the biggest industrial exhibitions globally. So we are really proud of our achievement. Then talking about 3GPP, actually one of the biggest contribution from 5G ACIA is use case and requirement. And this is give a big impact to the 3GPP, especially on the SA1. So this figure shown here, so the blue color, it means like 5G ACIA has a net contribution, and then the dark color, it means like 5G ACIA has a very heavy impact on the discussion. So especially this specification of 22.14, so this is dedicated for the factory and process automation. So from this figure, you see actually 5G ACIA constantly contribute to this use case and the requirement discussion towards the 3GPP, because we realize this is actually very important when we talk about the 5G 2B. Because at the beginning, what we find out is if we see the numbers of the 5G ACIA, we have a really good composition from the OT side and also the ICT side. But we notice the majority of the OTs, actually they are not part of this 3GPP ecosystem. So they cannot contribute, they cannot discuss. Actually then 5G ACIA plays this role to aggregate the requirement, and then we bring this requirement at the organization level and also from the member level. So we have very good ICT members who are also in the 3GPP side. So then we try to bring these discussions from 5G ACIA to the 3GPP. So that's how we try to impact on the standardization from the vertical perspective. And then, of course, other than the use cases and the requirement, then many of the 3GPP technologies actually are emerging because of this kind of requirement. So then what we see from the release 15 already, like the first release already have a certain URLC features, and then we come to the release 16, actually this is the major industrial IoT features were discussed, especially for example the TSN, non-public network positioning, and also time synchronization and so on. Then network exposure capability, this is also very important. Then come to the release 70, we mainly discuss about how to make the efficiency and the scaling up of the technologies. So for example, when you talk about the URLC at the release 16, actually the key problem is you cannot have a big amount of devices can be supported. Then how to resolve this? Now we come to release 18. I think this is similar to what Joe just presented, the new use cases are expanded. And then we see for example, addressing the AR, VR type of use cases, and then we provide further enhancement of the technology aspect as well. For this figure, I will not spend too much time because Afif also present, but the key message is, so even though at the beginning, Mr. Xie also mentioned for the 5G 2B, it has a certain difficulties, I think this is normal, because even though we call it 5G, but it's actually the first G for the vertical, right? Like when we have the first G for the mobile communication, actually it's still in a, I think, much more difficult time. So we do believe, like for example, from 5G ACIA side, we keep tracking these numbers, like how many private network and how many connections and so on. We track these numbers frequently, and then we do see a steady growth on these numbers. So this is a really good sign. So even though we have a difficult time. Then coming back to some fundamental things. Because when we talk about the requirement, we tend to talk about the numbers, like what are the latencies, what are the packet loss, right? This is typical things we discuss in ICT domain. But within 5G ACIA, what we try to work out is this, what we call it a Maslow model. So basically it means like the performance is fundamental. Like we talk about the numbers like 5969 or milliseconds, we talk about this number. But this is a fundamental requirement. But then on top, they also have a functional requirement and also operational requirement. So based on the 3GPP different release, you can already see this the functional requirement already addressed step by step. Like we see more and more industrial 5G features are defined by the 3GPP. But please don't forget, this operational requirements are also very important. So sometimes it's even more difficult from the business perspective. So for example, when they ask, what would be for example, accountability. This also mentioned by Joe. Can you provide a 24/7 support in case anything failed? Because we are talking about production, manufacturing. So this is different from the consumer business. Like if I have my connection is not good, I will try to call again. But for machine, if there's a one packet loss, then the whole production is just shut down. Then the loss of the revenue. So this is very difficult to imagine. Like if you are running a business like a car manufacturing or mining or this process automation. So we should really keep this in mind when we talk about the requirement. This is not only about number, but also about what you can provide, what is the added value, and what you could promise. So this is very important. Then when we come to the number, so even I just mentioned number is people easy to discuss, like give a number, right? But what does this mean? What is the implication? So actually 5G ACIA spent a lot of time to discuss, because the problem is we are working with a new sector. So the people from that sector actually have a lot of terminologies we thought we understand, but actually we don't. So I just take a simple example, latency. I think for this, ICT people have a good understanding what is latency, right? Then you come to 3GPP, you also have a latency that you define in RAN, in core network. Then also, now we talk about end-to-end, and then also about the transport. But this is a view actually also used by 3GPP, and then we did a lot of discussion to break down this latency in different component and also different terminology, like as a small subset of the latency. And I can tell you, not all of this terminology already aligned in nowadays. So this is the fact. So when you talk about use cases, especially at the millisecond level, you cannot have a misalignment, because this misalignment will give you a big cost in terms of resource efficiency. So that is the reason we need to go deep dive. We need to understand accurately what does this mean. So this is only one example. Then no need to mention about the reliability, right? Then I always receive a challenge even from my own company. Like, what does a 6.9 mean, 7.9 mean? Really, you lost one packet in the whole year? So this is the type of discussions we have. And I think this is important because we are trying to provide our service to run their very critical type of use cases. So we need to understand each other very well. Then this is another aspect, like how to put everything together. So we discussed about the use case, and we also have our methodology. Then actually this is service level specification. So you can also understand this is the technical part of a service level agreement. So this is very important for the business. because basically it means like what you could promise and then what you expect from the customer side. So from 5G side, we also did some exercise, like we want to understand how this service level specification should be defined and be utilized, because what we found out actually the issues of this new business ecosystem is we have a long tail effect. So long tail effect, it means like we have a couple of the big enterprise, but then we have so many small and medium SME, like we call it SME, like small medium enterprise, and their requirement could be very different, right? I think one of the big problem of this 5G to be is we have now is how to scaling up your solutions. Yeah, well, this is very different compared to our traditional business model, because when we work with as vendor and operator, you can name the amount of operator within one country. It's only a couple, right? The key operators. But when you talk about enterprise, this number can go thousands or even more times more than the amount of an enterprise. Then how do you customize? So that's the reason we discussed this kind of service level specification framework, and then we try to break it down according to the life cycle of the 5G system. So for example, from the modeling definition to the negotiation about the service requirement and the testing, monitoring, and then you try to set up your deployment. So basically, this is also one of the work we are doing, try to understand how to bring this use case and requirement from theoretical aspect to the practice. Okay. Then other than the conventional use cases we discussed, like I think after yesterday also discussed like motion control, control to control, like this is a typical use case we discussed. And in this year we also further developed the use case discussions to some new area. So this is one example we did, like we discussed about how to enable industrial use cases using edge cloud technology. And then we also try to identify, like, for example, this is just 3 examples of, I think, very interesting, like how to guarantee the worker safety using these XR technologies, and then how to run the fleet of the robot, and then to support this kind of industrial robotic use cases, and then how to utilize the digital twin for AR-based quality control, and so on. So basically, we are further evolving based on the new technology, and then to see what would be the gaps and how can we contribute to 3GPP continually. And this is another example. Actually, this work is led by myself in 5G. I think it's also very interesting. I want to share with you. The majority of the technical work for 5G is we also try to understand how to integrate 5G-based industrial communication technologies. So you know, in 3GPP we have 5G integrated with TSN, and then in practice we have 5G integrated with Profinet, Ethercard, and so on. So we choose the OPCUA because this is also one of the MOU partner organization, and now they are working on the MOU. They are working on the OPCUA for the field level communication. So it's also kind of like a new technology trend. And then in this way, we work with them and then try to see if we want to apply 5G to the OPCUA and what would be the use case to cover, what are the technologies, what are the gaps. So here, just a very small, but this is a typical figure from OPCUA, like they want to cover their use cases from the control to control and also at the field level. And at this moment, they are, I think, just released their specification on the industrial control. On the red figure, you see a wall. So this is also very interesting setup. So basically what we did is we work on one use case. The use case is very German. So they try to indicate how to produce beer, a production line to produce beer. Then the problem they have is like maybe for different components of the production are coming from different vendors. So maybe when you do make the bottles coming from Siemens, or you do the labeling from Bosch and so on, then the question they want to resolve is how to let the different industrial controller to communicate with the other controller via the OPCUA. So the role of 5G is, if you see the 2 antennas on top, like basically we try to connect the industrial controllers via 5G. and then to show the performance. So this is actually one of the first steps. We do this cross-organization cooperation, and then try to understand what would be the use cases and limitations. Because trust me, if you go to 3GPP SA1, I think some of the people here are technical. You can see only one short paragraph to say what is control-to-control communication. But then you really come to the factory, and then you can write a document with 20 pages to describe this process. So actually it's very different from what we understand. So I think this is also a very good lesson learned from 5G ACIA about the use case and the requirement deep dive. Then, of course, importantly, we also encourage our members to bring our the test bed. For example, we have a different test bed, for example, for the semiconductor sectors, and we also have industrial campus, Europe. So basically, these are the initiatives from individual members. Then we try to aggregate this test bed and certify it by 5G ACIA, and then in this way, we try to verify our use cases. Devices, I don't have to mention too much. I think many speakers already mentioned this is very important ecosystem. So the devices here are listed all by our members, like what they have from the vertical side that we need to consider. For example, what is the device architecture and what would be the requirement from the device. This is also very important factor for the use cases. Then lessons learned. So basically, what we observe, I think, is the same as the GTI in general. Like 5G is very exciting at the very first beginning, but then we go to a downside. So I think this is the typical what they call hype circle. Normally used for this Gartner analysis, but we do observe like we are somehow going out of this bottom already and climbing up. So here we also list 5 recommendations, like how can we really bring 5G for the industrial, especially from theory to practice, like from the paperwork to the business. So for example, I don't want to read it one by one, but I just want to emphasize like it's important to have this industrial IoT features commercial available. So therefore I think this is not only about the 1 or 2 organizations. This is about all the vendors, all the operators, all the verticals, OTs. I think all these efforts should come together, not only in one continent, not only in Europe or in China or US. So this should be a global initiative. And then another important observation is 5G ACIA, we're looking on the factory automation, process automation, but this should be also brought up. For example, we should also look into the mining industry, the harbor type of use cases. So all these kind of sectors can utilize NPN, non-public networks. So this would be give a push to the technology. Then another important aspect, and also the industry leaders, right? Like the operators, the vendors, and also the big enterprise, they should become a role model. So they should put it in practice and give the confidence to the business. Okay, what would be the next? So this figure we worked out in 2018 when we just found the 5G ACIA. The first thing we did is we collect the use case and map to this famous 3-angle figure defined by ITU. And then, in the past 5 years, we see this is actually quite accurate. Majority of the use cases we have been discussed and worked out, and then contributed to 3GPP. And then, as you know, in this year, June, ITU are already announced their IMT 2030 new vision. So this 3-angle figure will become 6-angle, right? Like it means like new factors will be considered. Then you also have this outside overarching 3 aspects about sustainability, connected, unconnected, and the intelligence and so on. Then I think this would be really a good moment to encourage the verticals to rethink about the use case and the requirement, right? Because before you have 3-angle to define your scope, but now your scope is brought up, then there are more use cases that could be included in this aspect. So even though 5G ACIA, we are not working on 6G at this moment, but we already have some early discussion on 6G because as an organization, you need to have a long-term strategy goal and then we need to be future-proof. So the idea we have is that we want to summarize what we have learned from 5G. And then what would be the mistake or what would be good lessons we should take from 5G to 6G. And then we categorize in three domain performance. So this is, we already discussed. We will go beyond of URLC and we will go much higher accuracy synchronization and so on. And then technology features, we also see like NPN will be further involved. And then integration of OT-ICT, this will be a constant topic no matter in 5G and 6G. And then, for example, like new technologies, like integrated communication sensing, native AI. So this will be the new component that actually bring the new use cases for the vertical side. But then, importantly, don't forget about the business. Because one important lesson, at least I learned, is the life cycle of innovation from OT is very different from ICT. We have this 10 years life cycle, but their life cycle probably 50 years or 80 years, right? Like if you think about what is the previous generation for the industrial 3.0, it's quite a long time ago. So therefore, what we feel like we are very pushy. Like as ICT people, we have different release and we come products. Then actually OT, especially the vertical, they may scared. They say, what would be the right release I begin to enter the market? For me, the innovation is so long, I can wait another 10 years. So this is not what we want. So therefore, when we talk about the technology, we need to keep this in mind. And then important, actually the first one is coming from OT directly. They say, protecting of ongoing and upcoming investment. So this is very essential for them. So it means like now they deploy the industrial 5G, they don't want to replace everything by 6G, for example, after another 5 years. I think this is also a very good point. Okay, so other than the use cases, we also have many other topics. So this is just a list of the work we put. I cannot tackle all of them, but if you're interested, please feel free to contact me, and also we could discuss during the coffee break. That's all. I think I'm just right on time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Xueli. Okay, so any... Okay.
Actually, I had another question for Joe, actually, just now. You didn't notice me just now. I will talk with her offline.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, very impressive talk. I have a quick question about the key features for 5G verticals. One of the slides that you impressed me is about the end-to-end latency.
Yeah.
One of your slides over there. Yeah. Yes, that's, I would say, one of the critical pain points in our vendor side when we deploy the private 5G to verticals. Some of the KPIs in layer 1 to layer 3 are not aligned with verticals at all.
Yes.
That one, the end-to-end latency in the network slicing when we deploy it to verticals, it's one of the very critical issues that we are meeting right now. Besides that, the other two, I'm just asking if you have some any insights on the other key features for 5G verticals. Number two is 5G LAN. 5G LAN. Number 3 is the red cap. That's also a hot topic discussed a lot yesterday. I'm just wondering, I know you're working in Europe, so for the slicing itself, for 5G LAN and for red cap, what's your insights for these top 3 features, at least to the best of our knowledge, in our end, when we deploy it in Greater China area? Any insights for these key features in Europe, or any other key features that you can address for us? Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I cannot I don't want to talk about the business perspective. I just talk from 5G SIA. We think the slicing is very important. So actually, one of the early work item we did is with our MOU partner GSMA. They developed a slicing template, and then we worked together to on this slicing for industrial 5G. So this actually we contributed to GSMA work as well. But then the issue I think is industrial 5G is not really commercialized. What we see a lot is testbed. and then also POC. And these are what we see normally. But I do really observe like there are big demand about slicing because they like this idea to separate the concerns. Yeah? I think this is very important because if you look into the OT architecture, actually in nowadays everything is physical, separated and protected. So because of this kind of critical business. But then when you talk about 5G, I can give you one example. When you want to use 5G to support control or motion control application, this is the typical use cases we discuss. That means your base station or at least your antenna should be on the field level, on the production line. But where is your core network? Probably in the IT part, in the IT department. Then actually, how do you connect your core network to your base station? This is already a very difficult question they try to understand. So therefore, for the verticals, they like the idea to separate the concerns via slicing. But then the question is, what would be the commercial availability of these features? And then the second about the industrial wireless LAN and also the red cap. Actually, this is ongoing work. In 2 weeks, we will have a plenary in Stockholm. This is also introduced by AFIP. Then we will actually work on like 2 new white papers on the NPN Plus and also the red cap. So for this one, we definitely think this is important focus, and then 5G SI, we are working on that. Thank you.
I have one question about, I think you showed by 2026, 13,600 number of private network. Can you define your private network? Because I think in the mobile industry, they are all calling private network, slicing is private network. Where is the core network? The core network, is it inside the premise? So how do you classify your private network to come to that number?
Yeah, very good question. Yeah, so one thing I can share, like for example, in Germany, we already have this 3.7 to 3.8 industrial spectrum already assigned for the verticals. And now I think the number is already over 300 enterprise applied. So we do see this private network would, based on at least at the granularity of the spectrum availability, who applied, who have the right, and also the physical locations, right? So for example, we can see that like the big enterprise, like really the tier 1 enterprise, they can have around 400 or 500 plants globally. So then this could be an individual private network. So I think this is really depends on spectrum, how do they get the spectrum, where the spectrum come from, and the deployment. So it could be, for example, in Asia, I can really see like in a big industrial campus, there are different companies, they may be an individual entity, but then they share the same spectrum and then the same deployment. Yeah, so I think this is a really case by case. We cannot really say, yeah, one like this is a private network. We can also see like, for example, different enterprises can share the same private network as well. Thank you.